Welcome to Kava and Kettlebells, where we talk about kava, fitness, and life. Let's get kavafied.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Kava and Kettlebells. This is Charles.
Hey, guys. This is Heidi. Thank you so much for tuning back in. All right. Today, we are talking about Kratom.
Ooh.
Yes, the boogeyman sometimes. Controversy. So if you have been to a kava bar, you have heard of Kratom. And oftentimes people who are new to this space, they confuse kava and Kratom. They are two very different plants grown in very different parts of the world with very different effects. So we want to make this episode all about what is Kratom and help educate you.
Yeah. Now, disclaimer, guys, Kratom can pull, it's like politics.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like there are people who are
both sides.
There's like a line in the sand and people are on like one side or the other. And it's a shame because this is a plant that can be so beneficial and so helpful, but it does have, side effects. And some people like to pretend it doesn't, and it does. Yeah.
So full disclosure, guys, we use Kratom and we support Kratom, but Kratom can be a very slippery slope if you do not use it correctly and if you abuse it and if you get too much into the extracts. And we'll kind of go into that. But long story short, Kratom is something that needs to be respected. And if you have an addictive personality or you think that this is something that can be too good for you, I would highly recommend starting very, very slow or even just staying away from the plant in general. So with that being said, let's kind of get into it. All right. Start out with the science of it and stuff.
Yeah, I think also as another disclaimer, nothing we say, we're going to kind of talk about the benefits. This is not medical advice. So definitely do not take this as medical advice.
I have a master's degree though.
Yes, but not a PhD.
All right, well.
If you are curious about how this might be able to help you, definitely talk to your doctor about it. Don't use this as a replacement for any sort of medicine that you're on. Really, talk to your doctor and do not take what we're saying as medical advice. All right. Disclaimer done.
Cool. Well, give me a little trivia. Ask me what the scientific name of Kratom is.
See, I'm afraid to say it because I'm going to say it wrong. So
I probably will too.
What is the scientific name of Kratom?
Okay, so Kratom is Mitragyna speciosa. Okay. That is the name for the plant. It actually comes from the coffee family. Now, Kratom is pretty cool in the fact that it can grow really big. We've actually seen some Kratom trees here in Southwest Florida. They're being grown and they can get very high. Now, Kratom is harvested through the leaves of the tree. So the leaves are what are harvested, and the leaves contain all the alkaloids that make Kratom. So where does it come from? So Kratom actually comes from Southeast Asia. So think about countries like Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And so how was it kind of used traditionally?
Yeah, so the traditional use of Kratom was actually, workers, they would be, in the fields and they would just pick the Kratom leaves and they would chew on it. And they would chew on it as a form of energy to give them energy to finish their job. And also as a form of pain relief. They were doing hard manual labor. So they would chew on these Kratom leaves to give them that energy and kind of subdue the pain that they were feeling, those aches and pains in their body, and be able to get their work done quicker and more efficiently.
Yeah, so sounds like perfect for a pre-workout.
Yeah, so that is our favorite way to use it.
So, all right, as far as forms of Kratom, so again, it comes from a tree, and the Kratom itself comes from the leaf. That's what's harvested. So we talk about forms of Kratom. We talk about loose leaf tea. So just like in your tea out there, Kratom, you can take the leaves and you can brew the tea. And that's actually the most gentle form on the body. That's the most natural way. Personally, I recommend if it's your first time drinking Kratom, I recommend going to a kava bar or just brewing the tea yourself because you're going to have the least side effects and it's going to be like I said, the most gentle on the body.
You can also make the teas. I don't mind. Like I don't mind the taste of kratom tea, but you can also add things to it. Like kava bars will sometimes add like lemon or honey or other flavorings. It's really easy to flavor a tea and make it taste good. Whereas the powder, which is the another form of kratom, is a lot harder to mask the taste. The thing with a tea though, which can be good or bad, is you can brew it strong or you can brew it not so strong. So you do need to be aware of that. If you go to some kava bars and they brew it real strong, you don't want to have as much. You want to be aware of how strong they're brewing it. Or you might go to some and they don't brew it quite as strong, and so you feel like you need more. So you have to be aware when it's a tea, it's brewed a certain way, so you can't let that necessarily be your baseline of how much you can handle. And that's one reason why we personally prefer the powder, because we use it for things like pre-workout, and you can dose it exactly, so you know exactly how much you're getting and exactly how your body's going to feel with that.
Yeah, so like Heidi was saying, another form is the powder, and what that is, that's just the dried leaf, and it's ground up super fine. And you've probably seen it before if you're familiar with kratom. So smoke shops will have them. Some retail shops will have them, and then a lot of kava bars too will also sell their kratom as well. And the powder form, it's hard to mix in water.
It is.
So I'll say that straight up. If you've been around kratom, you've probably heard of toss and wash. And that's literally just taking like a teaspoon of kratom powder, throw it in your mouth and then washing with like orange juice or water, or whatever. Because again, it's very hard to mix. But we like powder because it's very easy to dose. And again, it's as close to the natural form of the leaves as possible.
And what we do with our powder is we mix it with other powder. So we make our pre-workout. So we mix, I make mine with protein powder, an oat powder, my pre-workout powder, creatine, and then I add my kratom powder in there. And so I mix all the powders together, and that helps a lot with the mixability in the water, and it masks the taste as well. Yeah.
That's typically so how we do kratom ourselves. It's the powder. Also, you can get the capsules. The capsules are just the powder in capsule form. So it's, depending on how you dose it, it could be a pain with the capsules. But if you can't stomach the powder straight up, capsules are a great option because, again, you're getting just the kratom powder, which in our mind is the way to go when it comes to safety and dosing. You just have it in capsule form. Now, you could also get kratom extracts. And this is where, personally, we're not huge on extracts. Extracts you'll see in most of the kratom seltzers out there. Also, there's, a plethora of extract products and capsules and liquid extracts. What that does is it isolates the nitroguanine, which is one of the most prominent alkaloids in kratom that gives it its effects, and it isolates that. And so what you're getting is just that one alkaloid, right? So you're not getting the entourage of the whole leaf. You're getting the one alkaloid, the nitroguanine. And typically you also might see that like on a product like MIT. So if you see like MIT 45 or 70, whatever, so that's, nitroguanine at a dosage of like 45 milligrams. And 45 milligrams is pretty standard for most seltzers out there, most products that you'll see. With extracts though, they are, it's tough because we can use an extract and be fine. But a lot of people find themselves using extracts and then they use more and more. And it's easy to consume, right? Because again, it'll be in the seltzer or it'll be like a little capsule.
It tastes good. That's the easiest, I would say, barrier of entry to kratom is, the taste. And so seltzers make it really easy to just drink it and not realize how much you're actually drinking because it tastes good. And then you want to have more, and then you're not realizing it. And then you have more. And that's when you kind of you run into issues where people, build their tolerance up and up and up, and they need more and more. And you get to that addictive, gray area.
And just for reference, so the mitragynine, so that alkaloid that's typically extracted from kratom, it only makes up about 0.5% to 1.5% of the total weight of kratom. So as you can see, it's definitely taken, a very specific, piece of the plant and then magnifying it, which leads us into the next one. If you've been around the space, you've probably heard of this. Now, this is something that Heidi and I are both against. It's the 7-OH, also known as the 7-hydroxymitragynine. That is only 0.01% of the weight of kratom. Now, what's happened is that's been isolated and it's been put into tablets from 5 milligrams all the way up to 20 milligrams. And this stuff is nasty.
Yeah.
When you're using it at that dosage, it is so adulterated and it is so powerful and addictive. We don't even consider it kratom anymore. I like to use the banana analogy.
Yes. Yeah. I love the banana analogy.
So it would be like taking a banana, right? Which your kids eat, or, your grandma or grandpa or
everyone who doesn't like a banana.
I like bananas.
Yeah.
It would be like taking a banana, which has a small amount of alcohol in it, like all fruits do, right? And it would be taking that small amount of alcohol and then turning it into 100 proof vodka, and then taking multiple shots of that vodka. And
then saying that you had fruit.
Yeah, and saying you had a banana.
You had some produce. And so that's how we consider it. And a lot of, 7-OH is becoming very popular. And so this is our red flag to you right now. If you haven't tried it, don't.
Stay away.
Stay away from it. And you can talk to people. It is a million times more addicting than when we say kratom. We mean, just a basic, the loose leaf, the leaf or the powder, or like extracts in a seltzer beverage, something like that. We do not consider 7-OH in the kratom category when we are referring to kratom. And so that is just our red flag warning to you right now. So a lot of people will get upset when we talk about kratom and defend kratom, but they are upset because they are considering 7-OH. So understand the difference, and that when we are talking about kratom, we are not including 7-OH in that.
But that's also not to say that, we do know there's cases where people even abuse the powder in the capsules. And for reference, Heidi and I never go more than 2 to 3 grams of powder a day. And we know there's people out there who are doing 50, 60 grams of powder a day, which is insane.
Yeah.
There should be very few cases where you should be using that amount of kratom. My rule of thumb is never go past 5 grams of kratom per day. And that will keep your tolerance low, and that will keep the side effects at bay. And the FDA did recently release a study showing that high dose kratom capsules are, quote unquote, healthy and have little to no side effects. But personal preference, I still think that you should stay below 5 grams a day, because I think that's just a good range to keep your tolerance down. It keeps you from increasing that dose. And also too, let's be honest, it saves you money not using a bunch of kratom.
Absolutely. And we are very huge proponents of the idea of cycling on and off kratom. So kratom is part of the coffee plant, like we said. Just like coffee, I think most people are addicted to coffee, are addicted to caffeine. And when your body gets used to having it every single day and then you don't have it, you go through withdrawals. And it's the same with kratom. So when you get used to having kratom every single day, you will go through withdrawals when you go off of it, just like you would with caffeine. You're going to get headaches. You might get moody. When you are at such extreme levels of dosing, though, then you're going to go through more extreme withdrawals. And you will hear that to people where they got to such high dosing every day that they went through extreme withdrawals compared to things like heroin or meth. So when we talk about Kratom, of course, there's different cases. So we'll get into, the uses, why you would use Kratom. And some people might have, severe debilitating pain and they need those extreme dosing. So that's different. That's the 1%. We're talking about just the average user who doesn't need those extreme dosages. Don't let yourself get to that point. Cycle on and off of it. So go a month with taking it and then go a week, without taking it. So your body can deregulate with it. It can bring that, so you don't, the more you use it, you're going to need more and more to get those desired effects. So you don't want to get to that point. You want to cycle on and off of it so you can bring your tolerance down and you can get those exciting, effects from it.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things where you have to have like a lot of discretion with this plant. If you abuse it, you're going to find yourself in a bad spot. But if you use it smart and in a tactful manner, it will give you benefits. So let's go into some of those benefits, and we're going to, kind of talk about the different strains or colors of Kratom. We're going to talk about the big three out there, and kind of why we would use them, and also why someone else would want to use them. So when we talk about strains, well, first, there's different Kratom from different parts of Southeast Asia, right? You have, like I said, a Kratom from Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and then you got different colors. So the big colors you'll see out there. So like if you were to go online or to a kava bar, they would typically be like, all right, like what effect do you want?
But they'll typically ask you what color you want. And that's the biggest confusion we hear from people who are new. They're like, I don't know.
Give me a purple, man.
Yeah.
Give me the rainbow.
So when you think of Kratom colors, think Christmas. You have your green, your white, and your red. Those are the three main colors to choose from. Yeah.
So the green Kratom, I would say is,
it's more
it's tough because it's kind of like all around. I think it's a very good intro.
I agree.
Strain.
I think green is the best if you're first starting, I think green is the best one to start with.
Yeah.
And it gives you, all Kratom gives you a little bit of pain relief. So it dulls that pain a little bit. That's just kind of all Kratom. But green, I would say is more for like energy, more euphoric, more just mood boosting, happy sort of energy. So some people really like green for pre-workout. That's what I started with for pre-workout was green.
Yeah, then you got white. Now white's very stimulating. And, so with that, think, right, like, all right, do I want energy? Do I want focus? For me personally, white is my favorite color because the only time we use Kratom is pre-workout. For us, that's been the best use case for it. Not saying there's other use cases, and, we'll go into that, but a white Kratom it's not like a caffeine stimulation, but it's a little stimulation. And again, it feels good. And to be transparent, again, Kratom does interact with the opioid receptors in the brain, with powder and the capsules and the tea, not to the extent of the, drugs out there, but it still has a little bit of interaction. So, it feels good. And, for me with white Kratom pre-workout, I'm more focused. I am, kind of like more in the zone, and it's a great way to get through the workout.
And when I first started with Kratom, white was way too much for me. I could not take it. So again, that's why I encourage you to start with maybe green, or if you do start with white, start with a really low dose. Yeah. For all of these, I cannot stress enough, low dose. Low dose. Start with a low dose. Don't be in a rush. If you don't quite feel it, okay, you could take a little bit more or try more the next day, but really start low. You want to use the least amount to have the desired effects. More is not always better. No. So start with low and white was too much for me. Now I'm okay with white, or sometimes I'll mix a little bit of the white and green for a workout, and that I really like the way that gives me good energy and good focus as well.
Then the next big one we have is red. Now, red kratom, that is more, you're going to get more of a sedative and relaxing sort of vibe. And also you're going to get a little bit more pain relief with red. Now, again, with all these colors, depending on the dosage too, like smaller doses of kratom are going to be more stimulating versus high doses of kratom are going to be more sedative. And especially like with red, it's going to be that, if I were looking for something like in the evening, let's say, or if I went to a kava bar, like late afternoon, evening, and I didn't want to, get amped up. I wanted to, rewind and relax. I would do a red kratom. I wouldn't choose a white because the white is just, again, more stimulating.
And red is also one that I've done, like red capsules after not surgery, like a dental procedure, when you're kind of sore, or if you have surgery, that is a great one that you can use to help relieve that pain to go to sleep at night. So instead of taking like ibuprofen or a Tylenol, you could do red. And that kind of brings us to another usage that I use is for period cramps. So if you get cramps or you just have like a headache or, dull aches and pains, I turn to a kratom capsule. I turn to a kratom capsule instead of ibuprofen, instead of, Tylenol. And I feel much better and more comfortable using that than, pain pills.
Yeah. And, again, not saying
this isn't medical advice.
It's not medical advice, right? But for us, typically, if we have light pain, we usually reach for kratom, and that helps. And what I noticed with kratom too, especially with pre-workout, is it really does help my, let's say if I was like sore that morning and just kind of like moving a little slow. Like you get a little aches and pains here every once in a while. I'm an old man. I'm
we just turned 35. Yeah, so my gosh.
Man, mid-30s, right? But no, absolutely not. But sometimes when you've been training hard for a couple of days in a row, you do get a little wear and tear.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is, when I put the kratom in there pre-workout, once I start moving, I feel a lot better. Right.
And you have to be careful with that also, especially if you are using it as a pre-workout, because like we said, it will dull your pain a little bit, which is awesome if you are in tune with your body and you're in tune with how your body feels on kratom. So you can push through those barriers to push yourself a little bit harder. However, you need to be careful because you don't want to push too hard and you don't want to strain yourself and hurt yourself. And so it's really important, again, to be aware of your body and in tune with your body. And understand that you don't want to push it too hard because 5 hours later you might regret that.
Oh shit, those squats.
Yeah.
But so for Heidi and I, that's our biggest usage. And honestly, it's funny because we don't use a lot of kratom, and we never go above 3 grams a day. If we do an extract, it's usually in a seltzer, and that's
like a treat. Like we don't do that regularly. I wouldn't even say we might have like one seltzer, 1 or 2 a week, but it's not even a weekly thing for me, and it's definitely not a daily thing. No. And if you're someone who finds yourself having to pop a kratom seltzer every single day, I would really encourage you to kind of wean off of that, cycle on and off of that, maybe every other day. Don't make it a daily habit.
Yeah, 100%. So what are some other reasons people might use it, and why do they serve kratom at non-alcoholic bars, like kava bars and other kind of sober spaces? Well, there is a mood boosting property to kratom, right? So it does make you feel good. Also, it can help a lot of people with like anxiety, social anxiety, and again, it can make you, if you have aches and pains, it can definitely help with that. It helps you move a little bit better. For us personally, like we prefer kava for socialness. That kind of puts us in a better mood. But when you go to places like Kava bars, or you go to events, you might see people drinking Kratom and stuff now because it's getting more popular. For a lot of people, like Kratom is an alcohol replacement. I've personally never really found it to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially compared to Kava. I've always seen it. So for us, Kratom's just always been like, to me, I see it as like a different type of stimulant.
Yeah, and I think it's really important too to remember with any botanical, and we'll say this over and over again, is everyone's body is so different. So everyone's body chemistry is going to respond a little bit differently to that botanical. So even though we gave you the common effects and common feelings of green, white, and red, your body might respond very differently. And we know people who, for red, they get super energized and they almost feel what the average person feels from a white. They feel that from a red. And for the average person, a red is very sedative. And we know for some people, it just isn't. And a white is more sedative for them. So even though these are the common effects, you really just have to start low, small dose. Remember, we're going to say it over and over again. Start low, small dose, and see how your body responds to it. And that might be different from your partner or your best friend. And don't base it off of other people. Listen to your body and figure out, what's going to be best for you and your situation.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and that's honestly, like, in my opinion, that's also kind of like a cool piece of plants like this. Compounds is there's always like room to explore. And even with Kratom, I've been using Kratom for a while now. There's still kind of new ways I'm finding how it kind of works with me and dosages and stuff like that. And, if I combine it with something, let's just say like, I've been, more into pre-workouts lately, like high stimulant. Even with stimulants, right? You gotta go up and down. You gotta pull back that caffeine tolerance. And when I go low stim, and for me, low stim's like 200 milligrams of caffeine. High stim, I can get up to, I don't want to say it.
Yeah, for reals. High stim for me for caffeine is like 300 milligrams. Like that's my top.
That's
like I can't go past that.
But I found that when I do cycle off of high stimulants, and again, this is like pre-workout, if I raise my Kratom dose a little bit, it's easier coming off of those stimulants, and then I can take both of them down to a very, very low level. And then when I'm ready, I can bring them back up.
Yeah. So we're huge proponents of Kratom when used responsibly. And we cannot stress that enough. It is very easy to abuse this product. And we think it can be very beneficial in a multitude of ways, but you need to be aware of the possible side effects. And you need to use it responsibly. You need to listen to your body. And we encourage you, to cycle on and off. Now let's talk about, the thing that everyone needs to know about is, legality issues. Mm-hmm. So unlike Kava is legal everywhere. Kratom is not. So it is, again, it's controversial. We don't think it should be, but it is. So you need to be aware of your local legality around Kratom.
Yeah. So different states have different laws around Kratom. Now I will say that the majority of the United States, Kratom is legal, but there's about 7 states right now where it is illegal. And
including Alabama, where we lived before this.
So you got to be careful. So if you are buying Kratom online, or if you are let's say you have it in your car and you're going into those states where it's illegal, if you are found with Kratom, you can get in trouble because, again, it is illegal. And it's kind of like, it kind of reminds me of like cannabis and the fact that like some states it's like recreational, then medical, then completely outlawed. So you just, pull up the Google, pull up the Chat GPT, see where you're at, see if it's legal, and then proceed with caution from there. Also, age is a factor. Yeah. So depending on where you're at, it can be, something where you have to be 21 to buy it, which is actually so down here in Florida, that is the age. So you got to be 21 to buy. And then other states, it's 18. So again, when you are looking to consume Kratom and purchase it, just be aware of your local laws, your state laws, all that kind of stuff. That way you don't get yourself into, a bad situation.
Yeah, so we are constantly doing reviews. So check out our reviews if you're interested in trying Kratom. Check out our reviews to see what would be some good products for you. Drop in the comments as well what your favorite is and any questions you have. And yeah, enjoy the Kratom ride.
Yeah, so to wrap it up, last final thoughts. Kratom, it's a double-edged sword, okay? It can add value to your life, but if you abuse it and misuse it, it can put you down a bad path. And we know plenty of people who have gone down that path. It has been a hard route to go back. And that example is right, going back to no Kratom. There's different colors out there, different strains. So for different moods, different use cases. And again, it's a legal thing. It's not completely legal in the United States. So after this video, if you go buy Kratom, please, please, please just check the local laws. That way you don't get yourself in trouble.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Until next time.
All right. We'll see y'all later.